Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's Cone, and Jimmy Butler has officially requested a trade from the Miami Heat. It felt like this was coming along eventually. We've had weeks of rumors. Really, it's been months now of turmoil and hints going back and forth about, will they trade Jimmy Butler? Is he going to stay with the Heat beyond the season? This and that. And then last night, they went ahead and played the Pacers in a game where they got annihilated. Indiana was leading this one very comfortably, got the very comfortable win. And during that game, Jimmy Butler looked incredibly disengaged. He was sitting on the bench while everybody else was standing up celebrating a play. Clear that he was really not fully into the game. And afterwards, he was asked about the state of things right now, and he basically said, I've lost my joy for the game. I don't want to be here. The only way I can get my joy back is by playing somewhere else. It was like the most obvious not trade request, but also trade request I've ever seen, because he can't officially say it. He'll get fined by the league. So he did everything but say those exact words. Thankfully, though, Shams went ahead and officially confirmed it with a report after the game ended saying that he wants a trade. He has told the Heat front office he wants to be gone. And it's not just that he wants to be dealt. He's willing to play literally anywhere else. Those are the exact words from Shams' article, because apparently he thinks he can turn any team into a championship contender, which is like the most Jimmy Butler thing I've ever heard. But he would rather play for like the Washington Wizards right now and run pick and rolls with Jonas Valanciunas than play a single another game for the Miami Heat. And that is the sign of an incredibly fractured relationship. And Shams himself confirmed this on ESPN after the article came out. He said that this is unrepairable, that it is over, it is done. Jimmy Butler will not be a Miami Heat for much longer. At the very furthest, it'll be until this offseason and then he's gone. But in my opinion, he's going to get traded. I just don't see any way they spend the rest of this season, as much as they want to say on Twitter they're not trading him, letting this locker room continue to deteriorate in the midst of Tyler Hero taking an all-star leap. It sucks that that great play from him is getting overshadowed, because he really should be in those conversations, having easily the best season of his career right now. Like, I don't think they're going to let him continue to have to deal with this whole Jimmy Butler situation, and Bam Adebayo's not playing well. He's trying to figure things out. The Heat are in the midst of kind of trying to find their way to a new era. This is going to get toxic. It already has. I think they do end up trading him. And I don't know where he's going to go. The 4 destinations apparently he still prefers are the same ones. It's Phoenix, it's Golden State, it's Dallas, it's Houston. But there's just something weird with almost all those destinations. Golden State, I think, makes the most sense out of those 4. I could see them being desperate enough to make the Jimmy Butler trade. I don't see Houston going for it. Dallas would have to gut their roster. I don't think they go for it. And with Phoenix, I really just don't think the Suns are going to be able to get off Bradley Beal's money that easily. He's got no trade clause, so he has to waive that. And Pat Riley has to be willing to take on multiple years in the future of $50 million for Bradley Beal. And if he's not willing to pay $50 million to Jimmy Butler over the next few years, I don't think he's going to do it for Bradley Beal, which really does also bring us back to the root of why this is all happening, why the relationship has fallen apart. And that's because the Heat don't want to pay Jimmy Butler. And I understand really the gripes from both sides in this scenario. Because if I'm Jimmy Butler, I also feel disrespected this offseason when I was not offered the contract extension, because I have been one of the best players in Heat franchise history. I have been the best player on 2 finals teams, 2 squads that if you showed people the roster on paper, they never would have predicted those teams were in the NBA finals. I got them there. I gave us some of the best moments in Heat playoff history. Pay me my money. I want my bag. So if I'm Jimmy, I completely get that. But also, if I'm the Heat front office, do I really want to give a soon-to-be 37-year-old Jimmy Butler $50 million for the next few seasons? I don't think I want to, because he's injury-prone. He has been over his recent career. He's regressing, even though he's still really, really good, and has shown a continuous ability to elevate to the highest level in the playoffs. Like, I just don't want to throw him that type of money when I already don't feel like the roster is that good. That feels like a recipe for having one of the worst contracts in the NBA over the next few seasons. And Pat Riley was willing to let, Dwayne Wade walk, and he's had some problems with other franchise legends in the past. I guess I shouldn't be surprised that it's nothing different with Jimmy Butler. Although if a few years ago you told me that it was going to blow up this way, I would be shocked, because I really thought Jimmy was going to retire with the Miami Heat, immediately have his jersey retired, and I do still think that happens. He's a franchise legend after all. But it's going to maybe take a little bit of time for this relationship to get patched up, or maybe it does just casually over the next few years before Jimmy retires. I don't know. It's just turned into an entire mess that I really would not have seen coming a few seasons ago, especially because they were in the NBA Finals just 2 years ago facing off against the Denver Nuggets. And especially with this whole thing coming down in a fiery chaos at the end, it makes me think about where this Jimmy Butler Heat team went and how much they overachieved in terms of their expectations. I just mentioned earlier, they really probably should not have been in 2 finals. They were running off a bunch of undrafted players, and Jimmy Butler is not your typical superstar. Most times, to make it to an NBA finals, you have to have like a top 5, top 7 player in the entire sport. And Jimmy Butler has never been that level of guy. You can talk about playoff Jimmy elevating himself to that level, but just flat out, he has never been a top 5 player in the sport. It just hasn't happened, and yet he still found ways to get them there. A lot of the role players elevated themselves. Eric Spoelstra, one of the best coaches in the business, got everybody on the same page, and they made 2 NBA finals. The only issue is, for some reason, the front office, and this might go to, I think I might title the video the fact that the Heat front office failed Jimmy Butler or something like that, never really invested in Jimmy and the Miami Heat. They made a couple of moves that I liked a lot. Like, I think Kyle Lowry was a good addition and he was really helpful. I mean, he was critical in helping them find success when he got here, although eventually he became washed, but that was just really because of age. When he was playing his first couple seasons, he had some amazing moments. Like, I liked them adding PJ Tucker at one point when they added Jay Crowder, you know, eventually going to the NBA Finals with him. I think they've made some smart moves here and there, but they just never did enough to make themselves true bona fide championship contenders. And I know that might sound crazy because they made it to 2 NBA Finals, but when they went up against the Lakers, I wasn't doing YouTube at the time, but I really never felt like they stood much of a chance against LA. Now, there were a couple moments where it's like, hey, maybe Jimmy Butler is just going to do something historic and they're going to win these NBA Finals. Maybe they are. I mean, the bubble's weird. Anything could happen. But most of the time I was like, it's LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and a really good supporting cast going up against Jimmy, Bam Adebayo, and like the corpse of a few different players who were all injured at one point or another. Jimmy Butler's out there playing like 48 minutes a night to even give them a chance in that final. So in my opinion, when Pat Riley saw that happen, he should have immediately been like, okay, we need to get this man significant help. The first moment where we can land a big name star, we've got to do that. And it never happened over the next few years. And then they went to the finals as an 8 seed, taking down the Milwaukee Bucks, with Jimmy Butler having one of the single greatest playoff series that I have ever seen. That is one that I'm going to tell my kids about one day, especially like that 56-point game, you know, the shot that he hit to go ahead and send the game to overtime. Jimmy Butler had some of the most magical moments I have ever seen in one single playoff series. I don't know if I'll ever see anything like that again. That felt like Jordan-esque, some of the things that he was doing to take down Milwaukee in that first round series, and then they end up going to the NBA Finals. And again, it felt like they really never stood a chance. I don't know many people at all that thought that he could seriously challenge the Denver Nuggets. It's like, okay, maybe if things go perfectly for the Miami Heat, they can make this an interesting series, but for a majority of games, it's like, oh yeah, Denver's just going to run them over. They don't stand a chance. It's Jokic, it's Jamal Murray, it's Michael Porter Jr., it's Aaron Gordon, it's KCP against Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, and like some undrafted guys. And like a lot of those guys are really, really good. Don't get me wrong. This is not me like trying to slander the supporting cast. But in the NBA to win, you need stars. You need star power. And it feels like they never really pushed that hard to get Jimmy that other guy outside of like the Dame trade saga. That's the one moment, like, I don't blame the Miami Heat for not getting that done. Even though from reports, it feels like they could have offered more in trade packages. I don't think Portland was ever going to do business with Miami because Dame like only wanted to go there. I felt like they were going to try and spite him in some way because, again, kind of similar to the Jimmy Butler thing, their relationship was fractured between Dame and Joe Cronin in that front office. So I don't blame them that much there, but there were so many other stars, and even if it's not like a star, they never even got him like a borderline star. I mean, Terry Rozier is like one of the biggest acquisitions that they've made in the Jimmy Butler era. Last year, they were finally willing to give up an asset for him, and it's been kind of a disaster. And at the time, I thought the Terry Rozier acquisition was like interesting. It was fine, but it was never going to turn them into a championship contender. They have really never stood a chance of actually winning a finals. They could get there. They could pull off miracles to make it to that point to win the Eastern Conference. But when they got there, they were just severely outmatched and ran out of gas. They had to make moves. They had to invest in Jimmy Butler, one of the best players in franchise history, who was willing them to some heights that they really should have never reached, and they just didn't do nearly enough to get him the support to finally win the big one. Don't get me wrong, I think Jimmy Butler is also deserving of blame in this scenario. There have been a lot of times where he's not taking the regular season that seriously. He is 100% quitting on his team right now at the point where they're not like great, but they're not a terrible team. They're in the playoff mix. They could make it there, and you know, with the Heat, people always think they can make a run. I think they would probably get smacked around by Boston, Cleveland, the Knicks, a lot of teams towards the top of the East, but at least they can make it into the playoffs. You know, Bam Adebayo is trying to figure out his season. Hero's pushing for an all-star appearance. Like, there are some things to be positive about with the Heat right now. Khalil Ware is playing really good lately. He just had a career game. So he's quitting on a team at a point where it really sucks for the other guys, but I get it from his perspective. I don't know, it's complicated. I just think overall, over the past few years, the front office has just made a lot of mistakes. They have not done enough to not just help Jimmy Butler, but like help Bam Adebayo, help Tyler Hero, this whole core, this group. In an alternate reality, might be raising a Larry O'Brien trophy if they just made a couple of moves, if they were more aggressive, if they just went for it. One thing I'll always applaud a front office for is trying to take swings for the fences. Like, I know the Phoenix Suns are a disaster right now, and I still think the Bradley Beal trade was insane, but like with the Kevin Durant trade specifically, even if this team continues on this downward trajectory and nothing good comes of it, I like the fact that they went for KD, and I think they would do it again, because when you can get a player of that caliber, you have to take that swing. Like for the Bucks, even though the Dame thing didn't work, and I still don't think it's going to work in the long run, I don't see Dame and Giannis winning a title. I like the fact that the Bucks front office saw an opportunity and said, we're going to go ahead, take a swing, and try and bring in Damian Lillard. It might not have been the right play, but I at least respect them going for it. It feels like the Heat never really went for it. And it's not just the fact that, again, they failed Jimmy Butler. I think they failed a lot of guys in this roster. They failed Eric Spoelstra. This era, as successful as it was, because I do believe it was a success, it could have been a lot more. Once Jimmy gets traded, I feel like there's gonna be an article that comes out that details some real serious stuff from behind the scenes, because it really does feel like the way that this relationship has completely collapsed has to go beyond what we've seen. I know, like, Pat Riley took that jab at Jimmy Butler at the end of last season, saying that he's got to shut his mouth if he's not playing against the Celtics. And according to Shams in the article, that was a moment that really hit Jimmy Butler, and their relationship has not been the same since. But it really feels like there's got to be more to it that caused things to deteriorate the way that they did. I hope we get that article at some point soon and get some insight. And it's just a really unfortunate end to a really fun era of Heat basketball. This was a team that I'm going to look back on in one day and be like, damn, it would have been really cool if they won a championship. It was cool that they made a couple of finals. Jimmy did some amazing stuff, but it just wasn't able to amount in a Larry O'Brien trophy. And a lot of great teams don't. That's kind of the reality of basketball. Most teams, most great eras, most top players will not win a Larry O'Brien. Just the way it goes. Maybe Jimmy gets one in a different destination. I'm really curious to see where he gets traded. I don't think Phoenix makes that much sense. I think Golden State does. Honestly, Memphis is one of the more interesting options to me right now. I was doing a Bleacher Report stream before I recorded this video, and I was doing some stuff on the trade machine, and they have the contracts to really make it interesting and keep a lot of depth. So if the Heat are looking for just some more interesting pieces, maybe a little bit of a retool that can then pivot into a rebuild if needed, that could be a way that they go. I wonder if they go ahead and inquire. I mean, apparently anybody can, because he's willing to go anywhere. But yeah, those are kind of just my general thoughts right now on Jimmy Butler, the Miami Heat, this era, where things are at after the trade request. I'd love to hear your opinions. Who do you think's more at fault here? Is it Jimmy Butler? Is it Pat Riley, the front office in general? I keep saying Pat Riley because he's like the figurehead, but it's just in general the front office, ownership, things like that. And where do you think he goes? What's your favorite fit for him? All that stuff. I appreciate you watching. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. Yeah, this is crazy. Jimmy Butler, officially trade request has come in from him, and feels like he's probably not going to be part of the Miami Heat that much longer. We'll see. Maybe Pat Riley stands pat with his tweet that he put out there on Twitter, and they don't deal him, but to me that'd be insane with how toxic the locker room I think is going to get. But yeah, appreciate you watching. I'll see y'all later. Real one, say it back.